Hello there, welcome on board this flight. Just taken off from Chicago, runway 27 right, and we're on our way to a very cold Toronto. I have edited this flight down to show only the most interesting parts, to make it somewhat educational but hopefully enjoyable. Got some nice cloud views on the way. It's very cold, we've got real world weather, hence the anti-ice coming off now because they were on for the takeoff. So right now we're going out direct to eBake because the SID out of Chicago, well there isn't one basically, you just get given a heading it seems from air traffic control. So I just did that climbing turn at about 3,000 or 4,000 feet, whatever it was, and now we're en route. Good practice to just check over the speeds. This was done on the ground of course, so we're climbing at around 300 knots, we'll be cruising, descending about 300 knots. And I've got the approach page set up, but of course that can change over time. The map on the left is the Chicago area. Been cleared to flight level 230 there. Nice stable cabin vertical speed. And transition altitude. Good point to check that both altimeters are matched, which they of course were. Here I'm just making the route a tiny bit shorter, going direct to a waypoint straight ahead rather than doing that little wiggly right left turn. Save a few 100 kilograms of fuel perhaps as well. Got a nice tailwind if you notice, 67 knots. Up to final flight level, cruise altitude of 400. Now this was a strange notification, warning of ice detected. Obviously that's not real, I think that's a simulator, but I thought I'd leave it in there just to show that you can get spurious warnings, and the fact that I was just simply able to clear it without any issue. Just having a look at the weather conditions at the moment in Toronto, and updating the wind page for the arrival. On the navigation display you can see that we're just about to arrive at our cruise altitude, top of climb, and the top of descent is only about, well not about 50, 60 or so miles, so it's a very short cruise, but I wanted to get all the way up so we can go all the way back down again. Here we are leveling out, cruise star, at 0.85. And the engine's coming back nicely. Climb page has switched to the cruise page. And everything's looking good. So here I'm just looking at the constraints, just for a bit of approach planning. There's a constraint where we have to be between 11 and 15,000 feet. So I end up, you'll see, setting 11,000 feet as our first descent altitude. Of course, in real life, air traffic control give all different kinds of altitudes, and you're not necessarily always going to follow the star, but I'm following it relatively closely. So I'm setting 11,000 feet now as our first descent altitude. Top of descent is 3 and now 2 nautical miles away. Always a good idea, always nice to press it just before the actual top of descent, just so the engines don't power back to idle suddenly. It's more of a comfort thing than anything else. You can also use vertical speed, start descending just a bit before the actual top of descent, of course with clearance from air traffic control. They don't know where your top of descent is exactly, so you can just slowly intercept it from a shallow vertical speed and then hand it over to a managed descent. Just done seatbelts there, the barrow set, you can set it in advance of course while it's in standard. Auto brake, okay, runway condition is going to be dry. The minimums are 810 feet for a Cat 1. Onto runway 23 it's going to be. So in the descent you can see the little green dot next to the altitude, that's the vertical descent profile. And on the map on the left we're actually on the star now, a little blue plane. I've now decided to go to an open descent, and I'm going to set the speed now to 295, because I'd like to just make sure that we are lower and slower than necessary. More of a demonstration than anything, but nothing wrong with doing that. Nice idle power descent. So we're coming down the north side. We're not going to go all the way to Satur because it's too long. I ended up deciding to cut it short. If you look at the flight thing, it goes out a bit too far. But Calvi is the beginning, is the initial approach fix, and that's what we're going to eventually turn to from the north, from the downwind. Anti-ice on because we're approaching the clouds. I'm going to leave them on till ground. Temperatures are very cold outside. Intercepting now at vertical speed, just to soften the level off. And since we're below the vertical descent profile now by 2,200 feet, I can see on the primary flight display, that is not a problem. So we've got a bit of time at 11,000, which we're now at, which is now an opportunity for me, now that we're level, to come back to 270 knots. And we're just going to cruise along until the next waypoint, which has another restriction. We have to remain at 11,000 until we cross this waypoint. So it's a nice moment now to kill the speed. Here's a vertical descent profile. Finally, we're catching up with it. It's coming from above. Next waypoint altitude is 8,000 feet, or 6,000. No, it's 8,000 feet, I think I realise. So it's at 8,000. And since that's below 10,000, we'll bring back to 250, tiny bit below just to keep it tight, and start the open descent. Some lovely clouds outside today. So here, just updating the approach, because originally it was going to be 24 right, so runway 23. All is looking good. Let's get our numbers confirmed. Leveling 8,000. And again, we're at 8,000 before the required waypoint. So just to stay ahead of the aircraft, we can reduce the speed now to about 220 knots. Of course, in real life, air traffic control would probably be giving us something like this. Okay, getting closer now, north of the airfield. Next waypoint had a 6,000 altitude, Tasku, and you'll see on the chart it says 210 knots. So that is set. Open descent once again. So we're slightly above this one, so naturally I had to reactivate the speed brake and pull it a little bit. Done it as a little bit on purpose, just to demonstrate, because I wanted you to see the vertical descent. You see how the vertical speed has increased because of flaps, because the speed brake has been extended, and that very easily and quickly allows us to recapture that descent profile. You see the green dot there, so that stabilised us very easily, and we still arrived on time. Bringing the speed back all the way to 180 now, vertical speed down to 3,000. We're on the north of the airfield still. You can see the blue plane on the map. Approaching flaps 1 speed. So auto brakes on, the speed brakes are armed, cabin is ready, anti-ice is on. Flaps 1. Now I'm just braking off of the star to intercept Calvi on the ILS, which you can now see on the map. So I've got the turn going. Let's say we've been given 190, and then let's say we've been requested to go directly to Calvi. So there we go. So it's Calvi, and we're going to level at 3000. Speed is nicely at 180. Always ahead of the aircraft, never playing catch up. Altimeter set 1014. So I have pressed the approach button, so the glide slope and localizer are armed. And that requires 2 autopilots, of course. And now we press landing system to bring it up on the primary flight display. Lock star. So this is the time that we'll want to start to bring the speed back and get flaps 2 out just before we start going down with the glide slope. So localizer, establish on the localizer. So as we slowly intersect the glide slope from below, now is about time, just about 5 to 10 seconds beforehand, bring the speed back to 160, the next flap speed. First slope star, flaps 2 to help with the deceleration. Flaps 2 are geared down at 2,000 feet. And the crosswind is from the right at the moment at 20 knots. Go around altitude set 3,000. Flaps. So I'm just managing the speed, and once we're at full flaps I'm going to push it for managed speed and let the aircraft control the speed itself. Flaps full, managed speed. That's 1,500 feet and we are actually stable and ready. Now unfortunately a plane appears on the runway, but there's no crash happening, so please ignore the aircraft on the runway. It ruined everything. The chance is just 1 in a million. Just appeared. I didn't want to go around because I knew it wouldn't cause a crash. Of course we continue. Wouldn't in real life. 2 whites, 2 reds, very nice. Autopilot doing a very nice job. I was hoping this plane would accelerate faster, but it just didn't, so I do apologise for that. And of course we get a TCAS warning a bit later, but when it takes off.
50.
So we're in the flare.
20.
Thrust levers to idle.
10.
Infamous little float.
5.
Roll out. Now the nose wheel guidance will keep us in the middle of the runway. I did press my reverser button, but it didn't quite connect, so I realised that relatively soon, but the runway's long enough, we got auto brakes anyway.
Traffic.
So we got down.
Clear of
That aircraft flies away, manual braking, autopilot off, and we just rolled down to the end, taxied off, lights are off, taxi lights are on, flaps coming up, speed brakes retracted. So that was a nice little example of a very quick flight, Chicago to Toronto. I'm always looking for requests, different routes, different airports, takeoffs, landings. I can go into more detail in certain systems. Thanks very much for watching. See you in the next flight. Ciao for now.